Chapter 1. The last good summer. The summer of 1987 in Dunmere, Manitoba, felt like it would never end. I was 14, gangly and sun-browned, with a bike that rattled like it was coughing up its last breath. Dunmere wasn't much. A speck of a town squatting on the edge of Lake Winnipeg's muddy shores, where the air smelled of fish and pine. We had one general store, Marsden's, a diner called the Rusty Hook, and a hockey rink that doubled as a community hall in the off-season. Nothing ever happened here, and that was the point. Me, Lucas Tremblay, and my two best friends, Owen Gagnon and Sophie Leclerc, spent those long, sticky days chasing freedom that I remember that July clearer than anything else in my life. Not just because of what came after, but because it was one of those summers where every moment felt heavy with meaning, even if you didn't know why. The lake glittered under the sun, and the spruce trees hummed with mosquitoes. We'd ride our bikes down gravel roads, tires kicking up dust, racing to the old dock where we'd cannonball into the water, laughing until our lungs hurt. Sophie, with her freckled nose and braid always coming loose, would dare us to swim out to the buoy and back. Owen, lanky and loud, would pretend he wasn't scared, even though he hated deep water. I was the one who kept us together, the one who'd patch up arguments or sneak extra popsicles from my dad's freezer when we got too hot. That summer, we decided to build a raft. Not some kid's pile of sticks, but a real one, something we could paddle out to the middle of the lake and call our own. We scavenged wood from the abandoned lumber yard out by the highway, nails from Owen's dad's shed, and rope from the dock where fishermen left their scraps. Every afternoon, we'd drag our haul to the shore behind Sophie's place, hammering and tying until our hands blistered. It looked like a mess, but to us, it was a ship. We'd sit on it at dusk, eating pilfered licorice from Marsden's, watching the sky turn pink and purple, talking about nothing, hockey, music, how we'd all get out of Dunmere someday. The last normal day was July 28th. We'd spend it on the raft, floating just far enough from shore to feel like explorers. Sophie had smuggled a transistor radio, and we passed it around, tuning through static to catch snatches of the tragically hip and ads for car dealerships in Winnipeg. Owen was telling some dumb story about his cousin seeing a bear near the grain elevator, and Sophie rolled her eyes, tossing a pebble into the water. I laughed, the kind of laugh that feels like it's pulling you out of yourself. For a moment, everything was perfect. The lake lapped against the raft, the air was warm, and the three of us were untouchable. That night, we biked back to Owen's place and camped out in his basement, sprawled on sleeping bags, playing cards by flashlight. We ate stale chips and argued over who'd cheated at Crazy Eights. It was the kind of night you don't think twice about until it's gone. I fell asleep to the sound of Owen snoring and Sophie muttering about how she'd win next time. I didn't know it then, but it was the last time things would ever feel right. Chapter 2. The first crack. The next morning, something was off. I woke up in Owen's basement, my sleeping bag damp from the cold concrete floor. The house was too quiet. Usually, Owen's mom was clattering pans in the kitchen, humming old French songs, but today, nothing. I nudged Owen, who groaned and pulled his pillow over his face. Sophie was already up, sitting cross-legged by the window, staring out at the backyard. Her braid was messy, and she looked like she hadn't slept. "Did you hear it last night?" she asked, not looking at me. "Hear what?" I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake the fog of sleep. The loons. They stopped calling. Usually, they're out there all night, but nothing. I shrugged. Loons were always yowling on the lake, their cries bouncing off the water. Maybe they'd just gone somewhere else. But Sophie's face stayed tight, and I felt a prickle at the back of my neck, like I'd missed something important. That we ate cereal in silence, the only sound the crunch of corn flakes and the tick of the kitchen clock. Owen's mom came downstairs, looking pale, her hair pulled back too tight. She said she wasn't feeling well and was going to lie down. Owen just nodded, but I saw him glance at her, his usual grin gone. We grabbed our bikes and headed out, the air heavy with humidity, the sky a flat, gray slab dot on the way to the raft. We passed Marston's. The store was open, but the parking lot was empty, which was weird for a weekday morning. Old Mr. Marsden was outside, sweeping the steps, but he didn't wave like he usually did. His hands shook, and I noticed a dark stain on his sleeve, like he'd spilled motor oil. Sophie slowed her bike, staring, but I pedaled faster, not wanting to know WHYAT the lake. The raft was still tied to the dock, bobbing gently. But the water looked wrong, too still, like a sheet of glass. No ripples, no fish jumping. The air smelled sharper, not just of fish, but something metallic, like wet coins. We climbed onto the raft anyway, trying to shake the weirdness. Owen started joking about how we should sail to Winnipeg, become rock stars, but his voice was too loud, like he was trying to drown something out. Sophie didn't say much, just kept scanning the shore, her fingers twisting the end of her braid. That afternoon, we heard the first siren. It was faint, coming from the highway, but it cut through the quiet like a knife. We froze, listening as it grew louder, then faded. Sirens weren't common in Dunmere. The last one I remembered was 2 years ago when a truck flipped on the highway. Owen said it was probably nothing, but his hands were clenched on the raft's edge. That be why the time we biked home, the town felt different. The streets were too empty, the houses too still. A dog barked somewhere, high and frantic, then went silent. I told myself it was just a weird day, that tomorrow would be normal. But deep down, I knew something had shifted, like a gear slipping out of place. Chapter 3. The warning signs. By Wednesday, the strangeness had settled into Dunmere like fog. I woke up to my dad's voice in the kitchen, low and tense, talking to my mom. I couldn't catch the words, but the tone made my stomach twist. I crept to the hallway and leaned against the wall, out of sight. They found something by the lake, my dad was saying. Not a fish, not an animal. Something wrong. Torn up, like it was shredded. My mom's voice was quieter. What are they saying? Is it safe? They don't know. Could be a bear, could be kids messing around. But Mrs. Gagnon said Owen's teacher didn't show up yesterday. Just didn't come to school. I stepped into the kitchen, trying to act casual. What's going on? They both looked at me. Too quick, too sharp. My dad cleared his throat. Nothing, Lucas. Just some trouble out by the highway. Stay close to home today, okay? I nodded, but I didn't believe them. My mom's hands were shaking as she poured coffee, and my dad kept glancing at the phone, like he was waiting for it to ring at noon. I biked to Sophie's place. Her house was on the edge of town, backed by a stretch of woods that led to the lake. She was outside, sitting on the porch, her knees pulled up. Owen was there too, tossing pebbles into the dirt. Nobody smiled. Something's wrong with my mom, Owen said, not looking up. She's been in bed all day. Keeps coughing, like she's choking on something. Sophie nodded, her voice flat. My dad didn't go to work. He's just sitting in the garage, staring at his tools. Said he saw something in the woods last night. What kind of something? I asked. She shrugged, but her eyes were dark. He wouldn't say. Just told me to stay inside. We sat there for a while, the silence heavy. The loon still hadn't come back, and the air felt too thin, like it was missing a sound I couldn't name. A car sped by, kicking up gravel, and I saw a woman in the driver's seat, her face pressed close to the wheel, eyes wide. She didn't slow down. We decided to check on the raft, more to do something than because we wanted to. The lake was still unnaturally calm, the water dark and opaque. As we untied the raft, I noticed something on the shore, a pile of fish, maybe a dozen, rotting in the sun. Their eyes were cloudy, their bodies split open, not like a predator had gotten them, but like they'd burst from the inside. Owen gagged and turned away. Sophie just stared, her face pale. That wasn't here yesterday, she said. That we didn't stay long. The raft felt exposed, like we were floating in the middle of something watching us. On the way back, we passed a house with its front door wide open, no one in sight. A radio was playing inside, static crackling over a muffled voice. I told myself it was nothing, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Chapter 4. The breaking point. Thursday morning, the town started to unravel. I woke up to my mom's voice, sharp and panicked, calling my dad's name. I ran downstairs and found her in the living room, holding a dish towel to her face. There was blood on it, bright red, soaking through. Her eyes were red-rimmed, the whites veined like cracked glass. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked, my voice too loud in the quiet. She tried to smile, but it looked wrong. "Just a nosebleed, Lucas. I'm fine. Your dad's taking me to the clinic in Selkirk." Selkirk was an hour away. Dunmere's clinic was small, but we never went anywhere else unless it was serious. "Why not here?" I asked. My dad answered, "Too fast. They're short-staffed. Don't worry, we'll be back by dinner." They left, the car crunching gravel as it pulled out. The house felt too big without them, the silence pressing against my ears. I grabbed my bike and headed to Owen's, not wanting to be alone. His mom answered the door, her face gray, her hair matted. She didn't say anything, just pointed upstairs. Owen was in his room, packing a backpack. "We're going to Sophie's," he said, not looking at me. "Something's wrong with my mom. She's not herself." I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't want to know. We biked to Sophie's, the town blurring past. A car was parked in someone's lawn, its door open, engine still running. Two men stood on a porch, arguing, their voices sharp and fast. A kid I recognized from school was sitting on the curb, rocking back and forth, his hands bloody. Sophie was waiting for us on her porch, her face pale. "My dad's gone," she said. "He left last night, didn't come back. My mom's in bed, says she's sick." We went inside, the house dark and stuffy. Sophie's mom was upstairs, coughing, a wet, rattling sound that made my skin crawl. We sat in the living room, the TV on but muted, showing static. Nobody spoke. The silence was worse than anything we could have said. That afternoon, we heard it, the sound. It came from the woods behind Sophie's house, faint at first, like a low, grinding hum. Not mechanical, not natural, just wrong. It pulsed, slow and steady, like something breathing through a broken pipe. We froze, listening as it grew louder, then faded, then came back. "What is that?" Owen whispered. Sophie shook her head. "I heard it last night." It didn't stop until morning. We went outside, drawn to it despite ourselves. The woods were dark, the trees packed tight. The hum was coming from deeper in, near the lake. We didn't go far, just to the edge of the yard, but the air felt heavier there, like it was pressing down. The smell hit us next, sharp, metallic, like blood left out too long. "Let's go back," I said, my voice shaking. Nobody argued. We ran inside, locking the door, but the sound followed us, faint but persistent, like it was burrowing into our heads. Chapter 5. The collapse. By Friday, Dunmere was a ghost town. The streets were empty, the houses sealed up, curtains drawn. The general store was closed, its windows boarded. The diner's sign flickered, but no one was inside. Sirens wailed in the distance, coming and going, never stopping long enough to mean anything that I hadn't heard from my parents since they left for Selkirk. The phone rang sometimes, but when I picked up, there was only static, or worse, a low hum like the one from the woods. Owen and Sophie stayed at my place, none of us wanting to be alone. We tried to act normal, playing cards, eating canned soup, but the house felt wrong, like it was waiting for something. That morning, we found Sophie's mom in the backyard. She was standing by the fence, staring into the woods, her nightgown soaked with blood. Her hands were clenched, nails digging into her palms, leaving red crescents. She didn't answer when Sophie called her name, just kept staring, her lips moving like she was whispering to someone we couldn't see. "Mom," Sophie said, her voice breaking. "Come inside." Mrs. LeClaire turned, slow, her eyes empty. Blood trickled from her nose, pooling on her chin. She took a step toward us, then stopped, her body shaking. The hum was louder now, coming from the woods, pulsing in time with her tremors that we backed away, pulling Sophie with us. Inside, we locked the doors, but the hum didn't stop. It was in the walls, in the floor, vibrating through the house. Owen was pale, his hands shaking. "We need to leave," he said. "We need to get out of here." "Where?" Sophie snapped. "There's nowhere to go." I didn't say anything. I was thinking about my parents, about the blood on my mom's towel, about the fish on the shore. Something was happening, something we couldn't understand, and it was spreading. That night, we heard screams. Not close, but not far, either, coming from the direction of the lake. They were high, raw, not human, but not animal, either. We sat in my living room, the lights off, listening as they rose and fell, then stopped. The hum was still there, steady, like a heartbeat under the silence. Chapter 6. The discovery. Saturday morning, we couldn't stay inside anymore. The house felt like a trap, the hum pressing against our skulls. We grabbed our bikes and headed for the lake, not because we wanted to, but because it was the only place left to go. The town was unrecognizable, cars abandoned, windows shattered, blood smeared on a mailbox like someone had tried to write something and given up. The lake was worse. The water was black, not just dark but opaque, like ink. The shore was littered with dead fish, their bodies split open, organs glistening in the sun. The hum was deafening now, coming from the water, vibrating through the ground. We stopped at the dock, our raft still tied there, bobbing in the unnatural stillness. "There's something out there," Sophie said, pointing to the middle of the lake. I squinted, my eyes watering against the glare. At first, I saw nothing, just the flat, black surface. Then I noticed it, a shape, low and jagged, like a pile of scrap metal floating on the water. It wasn't moving, but it didn't look like it belonged there, either. The hum was coming from it, pulsing, alive. "We need to see it," Owen said, his voice tight. "We need to know what's happening." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. The hum was in my head now, pulling me toward the lake. We climbed onto the raft, our hands shaking as we untied it. The water felt wrong under us, thick and heavy, like we were floating on oil. We paddled out, the hum growing louder with every stroke, until we were close enough to see the thing. It wasn't metal. It was flesh, or something like it, twisted, pulsing, a mass of limbs and skin and bone, fused together like it had been melted and poured into a mold. Faces stared out from it, human but not, their mouths open, humming in unison. I recognized one, Mr. Marsden, his eyes empty, his skin wet with blood. I screamed, dropping my paddle. Owen gagged, leaning over the raft's edge. Sophie just stared, her face blank, like she'd seen it coming. The hum stopped, sudden and sharp, and the thing moved. Not fast, but deliberate, a ripple passing through its mass, like it was waking up. We paddled back, our arms burning, the raft rocking as the water churned. Behind us, the thing sank, disappearing into the black, but the hum didn't come back. We reached the shore and ran, leaving the raft behind, our bikes forgotten. We didn't stop until we were back at my house, gasping, shaking. The image of that thing burned into our minds. Chapter 7. The infection. Sunday, Owen got sick. It started with a cough, dry at first, then wet, like he was choking on something. His eyes were red, bloodshot, the whites turning pink. He tried to laugh it off, said it was just a cold, but we knew better. Sophie and I sat with him in my living room, the curtains drawn, the hum gone, but its absence worse somehow. "My mom had it," Owen said, his voice hoarse. Before she stopped talking. "It's in the water, isn't it?" I didn't answer. I was thinking about the lake, about the thing we'd seen, about the blood on my mom's towel. Sophie was quiet, her hands twisted in her lap. "We need to get help," she said finally. "We need to go to Selkirk." "How?" I asked. "We don't have a car. The phones don't work." She didn't answer, just stood up and started packing a bag, water, food, a flashlight. Owen coughed again, blood speckling his lips. He wiped it away, but it left a smear on his hand, dark and thick, like the water in the lake that we decided to try the highway, to flag down a car, anything. We left at dusk, Owen leaning on me, his steps uneven. The town was silent, the air heavy with the smell of blood and rot. We passed a house with its windows smashed, blood streaked across the porch. A man stood in the yard, motionless, his face wet with something darker than sweat. "Don't look," Sophie whispered, pulling us forward that we reached the highway. But it was empty, the asphalt cracked and silent. We walked for hours, Owen's coughs growing worse, his breath rattling. Sophie kept glancing back, like she expected something to follow us. I didn't look. I couldn't. Then we saw it. A car, parked on the shoulder, its headlights on, engine running. The driver's door was open, but no one was inside. Blood coated the seat, thick and black, like it had been poured from a bucket. Owen stumbled, falling to his knees, coughing blood onto the pavement. "Lucas," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I don't feel right." Chapter 8. The lost Owen didn't make it to Selkirk. We carried him as far as we could, his body burning up, his coughs wet and ragged. By midnight, he couldn't walk, his legs giving out, his eyes marbled red. We stopped in a ditch by the highway, the stars cold above us. Sophie held his hand, tears streaming down her face. I sat beside him, my throat tight, unable to speak. "I'm sorry," Owen said, his voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to. I didn't want," he didn't finish. His body shook, a violent tremor, and then he lunged, his hands clawing at Sophie, his eyes wild. Not his anymore. I tackled him, pinning him to the ground, his strength unnatural, like something else was moving him. Sophie screamed, scrambling back. I held him down, my arms shaking, until he stopped, his body going limp, his breath gone. We sat there, sobbing, the highway silent around us. Sophie buried her face in her hands, her shoulders heaving. I stared at Owen's body, his face slack, the blood drying on his lips. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. The hum started again, faint, coming from the direction of Dunmere. "We can't stay here," Sophie said, her voice hollow. "We have to keep going." I nodded, but I didn't want to leave him. We covered his body with branches, the best we could do, and started walking. The hum followed us, low and steady, like it was waiting. Chapter 9. The confrontation. We reached Selkirk at dawn, exhausted, our clothes stained with blood and dirt. The town was quiet, but not like Dunmere, not dead, just cautious. We found a gas station, its lights flickering, and banged on the door until a man let us in. He was old, his hands shaking, but he listened as we told him about Dunmere, about Owen, about the thing in the lake. He didn't say much, just handed us water and called someone on a radio. An hour later, men in uniforms arrived. RCMP, maybe, or something else. They didn't look like regular cops, their faces hard, their gear too heavy. They asked questions we couldn't answer, their voices clipped, like they already knew more than we did. They took us to a building on the edge of town, a warehouse with no windows, the air cold and sterile. We were separated, put in rooms with metal chairs and bright lights. A man in a suit questioned me, his eyes sharp, his pen scratching notes I couldn't see. He asked about the lake, about the hum, about Owen's blood. I told him everything, my voice shaking. But he didn't react, just kept writing. Hours later, they let us go, but not back to Dunmere. They said it was contained, that we couldn't go home. They drove us to Winnipeg, to a hospital where nurses drew our blood, shone lights in our eyes, asked us how we felt. Sophie was quiet, her face closed off, like she'd locked herself away. I wanted to talk to her, to say something, but the words wouldn't come. That night, I heard the hum again, faint, coming through the hospital window. I sat up, my heart racing, but the room was empty, the city quiet outside. I told myself it was in my head, that it was over, but I didn't believe it. Chapter 10. The aftermath, they say Dunmere was gone by the end of August. Not just abandoned, but erased, burned, bulldozed, wiped off every map. I don't know if it's true. I never went back. They sent me to live with my aunt in Winnipeg, a small apartment that smelled of mothballs and regret. Sophie went somewhere else, a foster home. Maybe. We didn't keep in touch. It hurt too much to try it out. I'm older now, but Dunmere's still with me. I see it in my dreams. The lake, the raft, Owen's laugh, Sophie's braid. I see the thing in the water, its face is staring, humming. I wake up sweating, my heart pounding, the hum echoing in my ears. I leave my window cracked at night, listening for loons, but they never come. Sometimes I search for Dunmere online, on old maps, in forums where people talk about things they shouldn't. There's nothing, just a blank spot where the town should be. But I know it was real. My body remembers the smell of blood, the weight of Owen's body, the hum that never stopped. Last summer, I heard loons again, their cries carrying over a lake near Winnipeg. I stood on the shore, listening, waiting for them to stop. They didn't. But when I closed my eyes, I heard it. The hum, soft and distant, like a promise. I don't know what it wants, or if it's coming back. But I know it's still out there, waiting.